in any comparison of 5th edition to 3rd edition, we need to start with the proficiency bonus of 5th edition. Because this one mechanic is what really separates 5th edition from 3rd more than anything else. This is the biggest difference between the two. So anybody familiar with 5th edition will know this, that the proficiency bonus is the same for everybody. And it's not based on class level, it's based on total level. So if you are a multi-class character, then you take your total level. You're a 5th level fighter, but a 2nd level rogue will have the proficiency bonus of a 7th level character. And it's calculation to know what your proficiency bonus is fairly easy. What we do is you take your level and you divide it by 4. And in this case, you round it up and then add 1. So at level 1, you divide 1 by 4 and you get 1/4. This rounds up to 1, add 1, you get +2 at first level. And it's the same for 2nd, 3rd, and 4th level. All these will divide by 4 and be rounded up to 1. Thus, when you get to 5th level, is when you get your first increase in proficiency bonus, because 5 divided by 4 is 1 and 1/4, rounding up to 2, giving you a proficiency bonus of 3. This also means that your proficiency bonus maxes out at level 17. Because 17 divided by 4 is 4 and 1/4, rounding up to 5 plus 1 is 6. And thus levels 17, 18, 19, and 20 all have a +6 proficiency bonus. And the mechanic of the proficiency bonus is very simple. If you are proficient with something, you add your proficiency bonus. You usually also add one of these 6 ability score modifiers. And that's it. Occasionally you'll have other modifiers, but not commonly. You get your ability score and your proficiency. And regardless of what class you are, they're the same. So if you're proficient with a weapon and you make an attack, you add your ability score and you add your proficiency modifier. If you're proficiency with a skill, you add your ability score modifier and your proficiency modifier. If you're proficient with a saving throw, again, you add your proficiency modifier, your proficiency bonus. And it's always the same. If you're proficient, you get the bonus. If you're not proficient, you don't. There's never a negative to it. You don't get a negative unless your ability scores are low enough to give you a negative. But that's not real common, although it does happen. But it's always the same. The bonus to your attack is the same as your bonus to skills, as your bonus to your saving throws. Now, occasionally you'll get other bonuses, but they're not common. A couple of classes get a bonus to attacks with certain skills. The rogue gets his expertise that doubles his proficiency bonus, so it's still based on the proficiency bonus. So you have these other things, but this is the basics. Ability score modifier, proficiency bonus. Never a negative unless it's from the ability score modifier. And what this means is that 2 classes, 2 characters, if they're of the same level and they have the same ability score, they will have the same modifier to their rolls. So, say a wizard has a dexterity of 14 and a rogue has a dexterity of 14. Well, then they get the same bonus on their stealth if they're proficient in it. They get the same bonus on attack with ranged weapons. They get the same bonus on any saving throws as long as they're proficient in them. It's the same. Compare this to 3rd edition. And we're not getting into too much detail, but in 3rd edition, there are 3 different ways to calculate your base attack modifier depending on your class. For saving throws, there are 2 different ways to calculate it depending on your class. For skills, there's another way to calculate it. So, in 3rd edition, we have 6 different calculations to determine attack, saving throws, and skills, generally based on what class you are and what level you are. In 5th edition, we have 1 flat bonus that everybody gets, regardless of class, it's the same. And because of this, because it equalizes the modifiers, it actually results in increasing the power level of certain classes. Now, another thing about this proficiency bonus that really changes everything is because the proficiency bonus maxes out at a +6, at least for players. This means that monsters' powers or monster stats have to be adjusted accordingly. So that everything in 5th edition has lower stats. Armor classes are lower than they are in 3rd edition. Skill modifiers are lower than they are in 3rd edition. Everything is a lower modifier, which makes it a much simpler game. I like the proficiency bonus of 5th edition. Simplifies everything, makes it much easier for new players to get into the game, so there's not as much for them to learn and figure out. 3rd edition having 6 different ways of calculating things, it can be a bit much. One thing, the proficiency bonus of 5th edition compared to all the various calculations for modifiers in 3rd make the games so vastly different that going from one game to the other can be a very daunting thing, especially if you're going from 5th edition to 3rd. A lot of people are going to struggle with that. Going from 3rd to 5th is actually very easy because of this, because those who are used to playing 3rd edition are used to this complexity, and moving into the simplicity of 5th edition, generally pretty easy. But going from 5th edition, going from the simplicity into the complexity, that can be a daunting thing. And people who are playing the game because of the simple fun of 5th edition are going to have a hard time with 3rd edition. 3rd edition, as I've said before, is my favorite edition. I love 3rd edition. But it is much more complicated. And this is the basis of the complexity, the difference. What makes 3rd edition more complex than 5th? Because 5th edition uses this mechanic of the proficiency bonus, everything is made much simpler. But, by the same token, things are much less customizable in 5th edition. Because 3rd edition, because of its complexity, you can customize characters far more than in 5th. So I'm going to leave that here. I will talk a little bit more about the proficiency bonus in a follow-up video. But if you are enjoying it, like, subscribe, and check out the Patreon page that I have launched here. So please check us out there and tune in for our next video.